Hey guys, thanks for joining me for another Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia video, and here it is, Dare to Defy 3 Stage 4. We got it done. This team was recommended to me, or at least the Galuf and Rydia part was recommended to me. They recommended somebody else, but I decided to go Balthier here, but this team does work really well for this fight, because basically I'm just trying to deal with the worst mechanics of the fight, which to me the two worst things are the combination of like this buff they put on with their force and like just having Balthier to take care of that. And then the other thing I think is that off-turn paralyze they do. That thing is just nasty. That's ended several of my runs that were going just fine. Then they just paralyze lock me and keep doing it over and over and over again and they kill me. So this team handles all of that. So we've got Rydia, who her FR actually works really well in this fight. If you're unfamiliar... if you're unfamiliar with this fight, or with Rydia's FR, it basically upticks every time you dodge. And Galuf is a dodge tank, so Galuf is going to keep my party safe from anything single target. Rydia with her LD or her FR can give me party-wide evasion, and that just takes care of all those paralyzes. So I just make sure I have my party-wide evasion up at the right times. They never paralyzed me once in this video. And we just take it slow. We don't rush. We don't try to like... ramp up for like a really huge force time. We just hit the forces as we get them. We take our time. We understand the mechanics of the fight at this point, and we kind of get through it, right? So we'll kind of go through from there. I just pardon me for 1 second. I got to send a quick text here. I am commentating over pre-recording, so I know that I win here, but I do have an important reply I have to do here. Okay, so I got that. So yeah, this it's really nice too, like to just show off how good Galuf is, because Galuf is featured on a banner right now, and dude, he's awesome. Like I said this before about the quality of banner unit that some of these units are on, like the Noctis banner, and it's really good. And so Galuf here is, as a dodge tank, like LD only character, he puts in a lot of work. And these are the type of characters that can still do a lot of damage because their damage is spread out over time through all their counters. They're not depending on really big on-turn damage. They're not dependent on having their own FR or BT to be good. So characters like Gladio, Oron, Galuf, I think even like somebody like Gao, right? These characters are so good with all of their off-turn damage. So right now we did just get up to our first force time, and I figured, you know what, with Rydia, like let's just sneak in a force before they hit 100, and then I'm just going to peel off as much damage as I can on this first force, knowing that they're just going to come out of it, go right into their first force. We end up doing a couple of really nice things in this video, and just in terms of like how we time everything and when we do the damage, I did take a risky move with Balthier, with this force, and it actually really pays off at the end. You'll kind of see it as we go through. But now what's really nice is you're going to see Rydia, dude, her FR ramps up quick, because it's like literally you dodge and you get 50%. So getting off turn 50% is insane, right? Now you can say like the core FR, we showcased off that in a defense comp, which is really good. But remember, it's 5% the tick, but we get a lot of ticks. Well, one Rydia dodge is equivalent to 10 core ticks. So even though it doesn't seem like Rydia's FR ramps up as often, it ramps up so much it keeps up, if not surpasses, like a core FR in terms of like an off-turn comp. It's really good when you're getting 50% off-turn. If the enemies are aggressive, man, all three enemies could go in a row and you're getting 150% without taking up a turn. So these off-turn types of FRs are so good that you don't even need to echo if you don't want to, because they're going to ramp up. And Rydia's FR does fit the mold of this fight very well, because this fight is very anti like ramp up with Tifa and do a big burst, because there's just too much interruption, right? So you're going to be like mid force time with Tifa doing this big damage, and then all of a sudden it's going to be like, well, they put their buff on, now I'm doing zeros. Or it's going to be like, oh, shields are up, I got to peel through the shields and waste a bunch of damage, right? Or, oh, they off-turn paralyze me, now my force is done. So they just have so much interruption, it really doesn't cater to that type of team. Rydia's works so well because it's the type of force that you just press it like I did, and you just kind of do business as usual. You just continue with the fight. Sure, we're now dealing with shields, but we can start to get through the shields and still have some force left to get through. And the nice thing is because this is an off-turn force, you can see we are building up the force gauge even when they have shields. So even though like right now I'm not doing damage, at least I'm making progress on the shields. By the time I get these shields off, my gauge is going to be really high. Then the decision I have to make is do I want to do an echo for big damage, or do I want to save the bulkier force times? How aggressive do I want to be, right? So the enemies are really high at this point. So my thought is let's just kind of get through it. Not be like crazy aggressive, but let's just kind of see where they end up and then kind of make decisions based on that. But I think a lot of you guys are familiar with this fight at this point. I guess I can kind of refresh all the mechanics so you guys know what's going on here. So the first mechanic is they're going to open the fight with a buff that makes it so you do 0 damage. So the idea is you have to either dispel it or use Bulkier to steal it, right? Or something like that. So that's how they're selling Bulkier. So you typically got to get rid of that. The other thing that we just saw right here is the boss will do something called Hardened Defense. And what happens is it puts on a very heavy Brave and HP shield that you must break before you can do damage. The problem is he does it ×3, which means he has like a small shield, you break it. Instead of being able to do damage, he welcomes you with another shield that is bigger. You break through that shield. Instead of being able to do damage, he welcomes you with a third shield, which is even bigger than that. Once you've broken through all 3 shields, then you crumble defenses, and then you can go through and do damage. And he's going to do this multiple times throughout the fight. So this is one of the big interruptions that will mess up if you're trying to do like a traditional aggressive force setup. It just makes it very difficult, right? So that's another mechanic. The other mechanic I mentioned earlier is when the boss, and we're actually seeing it in work right now, but we're just dodging it all. But what happens is when they are reducing your damage with the shield, I believe it's the middle guy, he will off turn just paralyze the entire party. So having evasion is really key to dealing with that. Because the issue with it, the paralyze causes so many issues. One issue is you're usually in the middle of a force time, and every time you eat up a turn on your paralysis, it lowers your force gauge turn count. So it's like you're wasting tons of damage, right? The other problem it is they will actually go into a paralyze, like kind of like a loop, where they'll paralyze you. All 3 characters get unparalyzed, and then it loops back around to that enemy, and he just reparalyzes the party. So I had a run with Zach that was going really well. I had them down to like 19%. I was cruising. And then I got paralyzed locked. And basically, Zach, they literally kept attacking Zach, and they kept reparalyzing him until his BT effect fell off, and then they killed him. So it's like, wow, it almost seems unfair. So that's what I said with this fight before, is it's not like a terrible fight. Like, the idea of it is fine. It's any of these fights that I think are a little bit too hard, it's because they overtune it just a little bit. One too many mechanics. I think they either need to tone down the shields, maybe just give them 1 and you break it once. I think maybe tone down on the paralyzed thing. The paralyzed thing I think is really stupid. The paralyzed thing I think is actually like really dumb because it doesn't even like sell any of the characters. It doesn't make sense to me. Like, the only thing it sells is like Balthier can like cleanse the party, but it's useless if Balthier is also getting paralyzed, right? So I feel like they're selling Balthier enough with like the really strong buffs and then the FR cancellation condition, because the FR cancellation condition is not easy. You have to deal ranged damage while cleansing a buff or a debuff on yourself, right? So it's very specific to Balthier, right? So I think I would be fine if they just wiped the paralyze off, and then the fight is a lot more balanced and you can go at it with a lot more teams. Even without the paralyze, it's still a very, very hard fight. The force effect, which I haven't talked about yet, is very much a pain, and you typically want to cancel it out. What they do during their force time is any damage you deal to them, they instantly like heal most of it back. You do end up gaining a little bit, but it's not much, right? It's like I'll deal like a shot for like 5 million, and they'll heal like 4.5 million of it back, like most of it back. So anytime you hit them, they're going to heal most of it back. And then they have another mechanic that just doesn't even make sense. Like, I think people were talking about it in my Discord, and people still don't fully understand how this mechanic works. The enemies have a thing where their health will stop at 1% and you can't kill them. And they have like a specific requirement for that 1% to go away. I'm going to be straight up honest with you. I still don't know what that requirement is, because in my, what was it? My first run that I beat this with, which was my the actual 6-man fight, right? When I beat it in the 6-man fight, you can watch that video if you want to. But I had where I had them like all down to 1%, and they just weren't dying. And then they went into a force time, and then like they started dying like one at a time. So I'm like, okay, they must need to be in force time to die. But then in this run, I kill off 2 of the enemies before they go into a force time, and they just died normally. So I'm like, I don't know what I did different. And you know, you read these boss lists or whatever, and they're just like giant Bibles or books of text, like just so much text to go through. And even when you do find it, it still is like kind of confusing. They need to do a little bit, but they got to find a better way to explain the boss mechanics, right? So anyways, they have some mechanic where they get down to 1% and you may or may not be able to kill them. What I think the gist of it is they're selling twins because they want you to do AoE damage like the whole way through. So I try to keep the bosses relatively even throughout the fight. And then go from there. Because I thought originally that maybe they all had to be down to 1% before you could kill them. But like in this fight, I kill one when one's at like 7% and the other one's at 3%. So whatever. If you know exactly how the 1% thing works, please put it in the comments. Because like people on my Discord were talking about it, and like I said, they weren't even 100% sure. So it is what it is. All right, so we're just going through. So they get a force here, right? Now, my initial thought with this force that they're on right now, we've got them down to about 50%. Okay, so we're about halfway through the fight. So in my head, I'm thinking we probably need 2 more force times, right, to be safe. So I got to make sure I plan accordingly. Now, my thought here was, yep, let's just go into a bulkier force and cancel out. But what ends up happening is by the time we get our force gauge filled, because they went in like right off of ours, right? By the time we get our force gauge filled, like their force is almost over. So I'm like, well, you know what? I don't even think I'm going to use bulkier force. So I actually opt to just let them run through their force time on their own. And then I've just got another bulkier force ready to go. And it actually really paid off for how things went. I was just checking turn count stuff there. But you'll notice it's kind of hard to see sometimes. There it was easy. We did like 9,000 damage and he healed 73 back, right? But you see every HP damage we do, green numbers pop up behind it. So they are healing back. They're refunding on everything you do. Now, the one thing they don't refund is like poison damage. So a strat I've seen with this is Pain works really, really well here. Or another character that has like really powerful poisons. So I have heard one of the cheat strats you can do on this, and I actually would have tried it probably if I had Pain BT, is you can do like an Ultimisia strat where you do the infinite loop combo with Ultimisia. I have a video on that on my channel if you want to see it. And then what you do is you just have Pain's BT effect up with the poison, and you literally just let Ultimisia loop. Ignore the mechanics of the fight, right? Because they're going to put up shields. They're going to put up that buff that does 0 damage while Ultimisia is looping. It's kind of like you just don't care. Ultimisia just keeps looping and you let the HP damage eventually kill them. It's what you do. It's a long strat, right? It's similar to like an Eateroth type strat. You got to put it on auto, let the game sit for like an hour or whatever. How long it takes to do that many poisons to get them down to 0. But sure, that's a strat you can try. But I am glad that somebody shouted out the Rydia strat here, because I do really like Rydia and I haven't pulled her out in a while. And it's nice to see Rydia and Galuf come up on a not just like a modern Shinryu, but a very challenging one and do very, very well. So it just shows you like it really does help to have like a variety of characters in your box. You can't solve everything with like Aerith and Tifa and Quina, right? Like you just can't. So it's nice to have a variety of options and a variety of ways to deal with fights. Rydia is a character I just really like because, like, the dodge mechanic is so good, right? Now, when someone put out this team comp, my initial thought is, well, why wouldn't I just do Edge? Because Edge's EX does party-wide evasion. But I forgot, Edge carries elements, and these guys absorb some elements, so I'm sure that's why people aren't running Edge in this. And Galuf, I mean, he's putting in work, right? He puts in really good damage. For what Galuf is, his damage is actually very impressive for his counter damage. Just such a valuable character, and having a wide variety of tanks is just so good, right? Like, I have Gladio, Galuf, Auron. Like, I've built literally every tank in the game. Like, the meta ones, I should say. Like, like Guy, I never really used that much, but he's technically considered a tank. But all of the meta tanks, I've always gotten them and built them because they're so valuable. And especially for lockout content like this, like, you just want to have options, right? You want to have as many of these guys as possible. Rubicante would be good here, but once again, it's an elemental lockout type fight, so Rubicante gets locked out. So Having characters like Core, Galuf, Gladio, Oron, they're all non-elemental, so they're very flexible in where you can use them, right? Like Gao's another character, like he gets elemental locked out. So a lot of times elements can be more of a detriment than they are beneficial, to be honest. But, it just depends on the fight and what you're doing. All right, so we've got our force up. We have them out of theirs naturally. We just let them run the course. So I'm like, all right, let's go. And we went into Rydia force again. So now we have another Balthier force. And the choice we have to make is, do we just want to run through this Rydia? My initial thought was, yep, let's just do the Rydia force, and then we'll save the Balthier force, because my thought is we're probably not going to get them close enough that I'm going to be able to kill them. And then when they go into their next force, I'll cancel with Balthier. That was my initial thought. But as I went into this, I actually got them a lot lower than I thought I was going to. And we end up burning through their last shield. And I know we're like in the clear, like no more shields. So I kind of was like, I mean, I'm at like 900%. I could do an echo here and do huge damage, combo it with a summon. I was like, So you'll see what happens. We kind of get there. But yeah, we just go through. Yeah, you see that Balthier echo's just chilling there, like waiting to be used. But we can't pop that thing too early. We either have to hold it for another force or really use it late to get the most out of it. And I'm really glad I did it the way that I did it. It worked out splendidly. The thing with Galuf that's really good is he is also a double counter character. So there are actually quite a few double counter characters in this game. 8 is another one. He's another evade tank that double counters. So yeah, if you're doing like, Rubicante, Gao, Galuf, 8, like these are all like double counter characters that you can combo with an off-turn FR. It's really nice. All right. And then, yeah, at this point, I'm like, let's make sure we upkeep our buffs. I'm making sure Galuf literally holds his role this entire fight. He's covering the entire fight. He dodges literally every attack. I think there's one attack we take, and it might be after this force, that the ball does on the right side, and I'm guessing it's not dodgeable because everybody got hit. But, like, other than that, like, Galuf, I think, literally dodges every single thing in this fight that comes at him. And he's just putting in work. Such a good character. I really do need to blue him. He's just too good. And we did just get a lot of Lufenia armor material. So I don't know. I might blue him just because he's so good. I eventually want to get all the top tier tanks blued. I think I recently blued Oron. I've already blued Gladio. I have not blued Gao. I want to blue Gao. And I do want to blue Galuf as well. Kind of want to blue Rydia too. Did I blue Rydia? I might have blued Rydia. We'll see. But I'm getting to the point where, kind of like when you're a veteran, as you build up characters on these rare resources like armor, it's getting to the point where, characters will drop and I'll be like, yeah, I've already got them blued so that I can stack my materials for a while and just start bluing these other characters. It's really nice. All right, so here we go. We're on the last round of shields. Now, we only got 4 turns of force. So my thought is, and once again, with Rydia, you can see we're getting really good gains off turn even though they've got shields up. So we're building up here, right? And Galuf, he's poking away like he just got a break there, right? So Galuf poking away with his counters. We're getting the mass dodge. Those lasers are the other thing that ruin runs. They just one-shot your party. If you don't have mitigation or dodge, those lasers will just pop up. You'll be having a good run, and then bam, your party's dead. So you got to watch out for them lasers. For sure. All right, so we got Balthier up. We're definitely not echoing right now. That would be a bad time to echo. So I'm like, yep, let's just snapshot. We get the break. So we're in round number 2 of shields. So we got to break these shields now, like ASAP, if I want to get any more damage out of this force. So we go EX here with Galuf. No damage, didn't break any shields. So it's like, oh, we're down to 2 turns. I'm like, yeah, we're probably going to have to do this. But then I'm like, wait a minute. The enemies are attacking a bunch. And we got to the last shields. So, can Galuf get through the last shields? So I'm thinking about it. I'm like, I don't know. And we're looking at our percent. We're at 900 now. We could. The thing is they're at 30-something%, which is a huge chunk of health. But if we play this last turn well, we can burn them down to near dead. You can do so much damage on a high force gauge. So this is where I had to gamble. And there he is trying to inflict the paralyze. We're dodging out. The decision I have to make is do I want to play it, safe and just do a big attack. And then, they're still going to have a lot of health and we go into another force? Or do I gamble and go with the bulkier Echo, but then I forgo any way of, getting out of their force if they get another one, right? It's kind of a gamble. So here's the thing. I know they still got shield, so I'm not just going to Echo. So my thought is let's drop the Bahamut summon. And if Bahamut summon breaks their shields, I'm going to Echo. That's what I decided in this moment. So watch what happens here. I'm like, all right, I want to test it. Can we get rid of the last shield? We Bahamut summon. I hear a break, so I'm like, all right, I think shields are going to be gone. Protection crumbled. And I'm like, you know what? I think about it for a minute. But I'm like, dude, there's so much damage. Not only do we Echo, but we do all the damage on the Echo, but we get another attack. So I'm like, let's go for it. Let's see if we can burn them down real quick here. So we go ahead and do the Echo, because I know they've got no more shields. They've got no more way to interrupt me here. So I'm like, let's pop that big damage. Now this worked out perfect. 22 mil AoE. Look at them. Totally worth it. Now they put up the really bad debuff, or the bad buff, but we've got Balthier, so we can snatch it away and still deal damage. We got another 8 mil AoE, and then bam! One of the enemies is down to 1%. We got an 8%. We got a 3%. I'm like, dude, we can coast now. They're low enough that I think we actually can get them before they get to their force time. So I'm like, yes, 100% worth it, because we would have been grinding for a while. Had we not done that, they still would have been at like 30%. And then we'd have to go into another force, do the whole shenanigan again. We played aggressive there, timed it just right, and it worked out great. So now we get a launch, we're attacking. I'm like, I don't know if these guys are going to die. I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm trying to burst down the strongest one as quick as I can. I want to get them all to 1%. So that way, if they do get to their force, I know I can still kill them. We just have to do enough damage to kill them before they heal back. But it's really hard to build up damage against them once they're in force. So I'm really targeting the highest HP ones I can. I'm like, let's go all out. Let's put Radiant Breath on. We're doing everything. We're at the end of the fight. We're going to make sure every buff possible is on. They can't mess us up. And dude, we killed the right enemy. So right there, and the enemies are not all at 1%. We were just magically able to kill that right one. So I'm like, sweet. So I'm like, all right, what's Wild Throttle? They put some debuffs on us. So I'm like, let's get rid of that. Get rid of that malarkey. Go into my EX. I'm so excited at this point. I've been dreading this fight all week. I've struggled with it. It's just yes, let's get it done. Now, it feels like it's taken me a long time to get this fight done, but in reality, this is my 5th attempt on it or something. It's just, dude, an attempt will take you 30 to 40 minutes, and I can do one of those, and I'm like, all right, well, I got to move on to something else or go to bed. During the week, I don't have time to sit and putz with the fight that long. So, luckily, we got to Friday evening here. I'm like, let's put in my one attempt for the night that I've been doing, and we got it. We got it. So, yep, we got him down here. We're going to summon Dragon. And I think we actually popped the left enemy here before they go into force. So they can be killed when they're not in force. Because my first run, they all died while they were in force. I'm like, is that a requirement? I don't know. I still don't know how this fight works, but we figured it out. I mean, obviously, I understand most of the mechanics in the fight. I just don't know what is that 1% thing. But anyways, the left enemy dead. So I'm like, sweet. We're gaming now because he's at 1%. He can go into force time. Even though he's healing, we know we get some gain on our attacks. And as long as we can just get enough to get that last 1%, we can kill him during their force. It's not a big deal. At this point, I'm like, all right, well, let's just do cover. We're basically wanting to get the Balthier now ASAP because we need to get rid of their buffs. Big time. And they have that big fat poison going right now, which is really nice. And Galuf just doing his thing. He's like, I'm going to dodge out. I'm going to counter. Once again, no damage here because of those buffs, but Balthier's about to steal those right off. So glad I brought Balthier to this fight. And by the way, this is a BT-less Balthier doing just fine. Does his job well. All right, we stole that off. We're good. And then on Balthier's next turn, actually, I think we might do it on Rydia's turn. So I think we use a Penelo call, but we got to get rid of those debuffs. I don't like having those debuffs on. So now I'm just thinking yep, any attack now we're going to kill him. I don't know which one it's going to be, but we just got to kill this guy and get out of this fight. We just got to do it. All right, yep, so I had Penelo chill in there, so I'm like, yep, let's do Evanescence. Let's clear the debuffs off. So I specifically brought Penelo and Pain just in case I needed to deal with the buff-debuff scenario, when Balthier didn't have a turn. I just wanted to have the option to handle it myself, right? All right, and then Rydia, I'm like, sure, let's LD again, make sure our whole party can dodge, and then bam, killed. So anyways, guys, there you go. We got it done. But I would say if you have Rydia and Galuf, and then whether it be Balthier or another character to deal with the mechanics, I definitely think y'all can get it done. There is my run right there. So let me know how you guys handled Dare to Defy 4. Thanks for watching. We'll catch y'all on the next one.